All right. Cool.
Ready.
This is a show where we're going to talk about reflections on the last year. Welcome, everybody in the chat. Feel free to comment. Today, we're just kind of chatting it up between the three of us that have kind of brought this podcast together and talking about how we navigated the last year, even through like a 4-month lull, and then how coming back and adding people really invigorated things. So feel free to say hi, give comments, things like that. Cool. Thanks, Devin and Danielle, for coming on as well. This has been an interesting time in the last year. So to recap, the way that the podcast started was I had an idea in I think it was 2012 or something like that, to where I wanted to create a documentary about some people in my life that were really crucial, like mentors, kind of get their stories, things like that, because they were very interesting stories and I didn't want to forget, but I also kind of wanted their stories to live on even after they were gone. And since they were old guys, I wanted to do it quickly. That was in 2012. Then what happened is in 2019, February 2019, I was at a men's retreat. Things were popping, and I heard this guy's story, Carlton, who was on the last episode. And I had been streaming a little bit, and I was like, what if we just stream it? Like, I saw the Joe Rogan podcast, and I was like, yo, that's dope. I like the Joe Rogan podcast. Like, what if we just brought these guys in? And at the time, it was called Men of Faith. So I did the first couple of episodes with someone that helped out, Byron, and they went really, really well. And then Devin jumped in, and Devin was playing the ones and twos on the live production, which was cool. And I think one of the first things when Devin, you and I started was one of the first episodes was Clint Ricketts, where he talked about going and being a missionary, moving his entire family, like this physical therapist. And we kind of had a moment in time at that point because that was a deep episode. What kind of stood out to you about that episode that we continued forward with the rest of the episodes?
Well, really a hit was just the personal relation there. It was just like he's like, hey, here's what's real, here's what's going on. And it was multiple things. It wasn't just one thing. Sure, it was them being a missionary, but he talked about the miscarriage in his wife and how they personally went through that, and his son, and having to understand that, hey, I got to be okay with moving across the world.
Right.
So those were some of the things that just really popped out. And like, dude, we need to hit more of this kind of information and
right.
a way to present it to people that, hey, you're not alone in this stuff, man.
Yeah. I think that's what really kind of stuck out was that it struck a nerve. There were so many challenges. I think listening to how he navigated through those, and then how he kind of walked in faith through those was really kind of what we were after. And then that's when we really started clipping things up as well. And I think one learning we learned was that not everybody's going to sit there and listen to the full hour and a half long episode, which Danielle, I'm not sure kind of when the podcast started getting on your radar and if you actually sat down and watched a full one or if you were actually enjoying the clips more. It'd be interesting kind of to hear your feedback on clips versus episode length type things.
Well, I don't have a long attention span, so clips, little snippets, have been good. And I think that's for a lot of people too. A lot of us don't have time to just sit. It may be great content, but when you pull out just the gold from it and just break that up.
Yeah. That's where we started doing, I think at Clint's episode was we started creating the clips, putting those on the podcast, and we saw one that people like the little 5 to 10 minute clips were much more digestible to folks and kind of got to the point of things. And we also started doing these like, no, we didn't start doing that. Later, we started doing these little 1 minute highlights. And I think those were like really, really highly edited. That's one thing that we've learned is like, one thing from the beginning, we didn't want to edit anything in the episode because we wanted it to be raw. We wanted the raw emotion, the raw story. We didn't want to edit anything out because we wanted it to kind of be authentic and real. And because we're talking about people's stories. And I think we accomplished that with the episodes and the little 5 to 10 minute clips. But I think it was okay. That's one thing that I learned is it's okay to create these little 1 minute highly edited things to kind of pack a bunch of stuff into 1 minute and put those on like Instagram and Facebook and things like that. That's kind of the model that we run with now. So then after Clint Ricketts episode in, what was that, August of last year?
Yeah.
We then went 4 months, January, until we had another episode. And actually it would be very easy for me to say that like it was because of Devin's stroke.
My fault. Yeah, it was my fault. Yeah.
That's the cop-out answer. The cop-out answer is Devin had a stroke. But that was in November. So like there's still 2 months there. 3 months.
He did recover quick, though. I mean,
he did recover real quick because you had your stroke like early November, and then like early January, we were already back at it in the saddle. So, what was that like for you? Like, what was your like once you obviously during the stroke? I doubt you were thinking. Actually, no, we were supposed to record Todd Sadowski that day, and you had your stroke.
We were supposed, well, I think we originally had them scheduled, and then something came up and we ended up postponing it and not knowing why. We had to postpone it. We were like, man, we just want to hurry and get this done because he had some really good information, and we were dying to get that recorded and pushed out. And then sure enough, man, I decided to have a little bit of a stroke and take some time off.
A little bit of a
one.
Yeah.
Well, so like you have your stroke, and we're like, I messaged Todd, and I was like, hey, because we'd already rescheduled with him, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, gonna have to reschedule again.
Yeah.
But only because Devin's currently having a stroke. And so like how else do you say it? Like, I don't know. Yeah. So like he was like, oh man, praying for him. Like, I was like, yep, I'll like let you know. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe it was the day before. And but we had to reschedule that again for good enough reasons. So like, but there were 3 months there where like we didn't have one, and it wasn't because of trying. It was more just because of like things came up in life, and I think one of the things that I have really appreciated is that we've never judged ourselves for missing a month, or like we didn't get an episode out and like felt down on ourselves. I think people don't create content a lot of times because they get down on themselves for like, oh, I didn't post today, or oh, I didn't get an episode out this week. And I've seen a lot of people stop because they just start judging themselves for not doing that. But I don't think that's ever been our kind of posture about it. Like, we're just like, we want to find the right story, and we want to capture the right story, and then worry about the logistics of it from there. So go ahead.
I think it's kind of, leading into how this last month has been. It's been, things have led up, and it's just, we've been patient and waited, not rush everything. So
because so we start back in January, and we came in pretty hot with having 2 episodes out within a week, and that was good. We started again doing the clips and everything else, and then I'm sharing our stuff on Facebook, and it's like not wanting to work. I love the internet. But I think one of the things is I wanted to get Todd obviously on. I wanted to get our new pastor Phil on to be like, hey, how do you like run a church that you don't know anyone out? Like that was an interesting question. And I still really like the idea of having him come back and kind of share what it is that he learned. But then thinking about Todd's episode, we started hitting coronavirus. And coronavirus is where like it kind of got real because we were like, well, we can't meet in person. And that was kind of the whole point. I mean, like Devin, you and I had only thought about doing things in person. I don't think like we were even going to travel at one point, right? With Jason Thacker in his episode. So talk a little bit about the decision to like move to a different format, because I think that's important.
Yeah. Well, for me, I always had a thought in the back of my mind, maybe we would be able to go mobile somehow where we wouldn't have to be in person, but that would be very rare. Because I like getting down and actually sitting and talking with the person one-on-one. It's a little more personal. They kind of start feeling a little better. So the decision to go virtual like we have, I think it was the best option for us because we all had families and we didn't want to just bring people in to travel and stuff. And like I was kind of like, hey, let's go ahead and go to Memphis and meet up with Jason, but not thinking it was the best idea. So I think you really found the right platform. We kind of started gearing and messing around with some of them.
We messed around with a few. And I think it was like, it actually was a perfect moment because we decided like, oh my gosh, coronavirus has happened. But what we found was people were just like going live on Facebook, like random people just being like, I'm going for a walk now. And it's like people would like join people on their walks and talk to them through there. And like, it's a very interesting like trend that happened that was like, okay, how do we take advantage of that so that we don't, because what we didn't want to do is just stop and just not do any more content. And so using we saw another person, Gary Vaynerchuk, who leads a media company. He was using StreamYard, and I was like, yo, this is like a low cost way to like bring in people. And then that's when it sparked for us kind of May, which I think has been a huge month for us because we've been able to do one podcast every single week in the month of May. And that's never like, we've not done that before. And so I'm interested to hear from both of you, like what were the challenges that you think we've faced doing one a week? And do you think it's sustainable? Like, we've not actually talked about this like offline, so I actually like that we're talking about this. So like, but like, so like Devin, what are the challenges, and do you think it's something that's sustainable?
Yeah, the challenge is scheduling, obviously, because one, we have families, and it's as much as we love to do this, we also don't want to take away from our families and the time we have with them. The coronavirus has really opened up a lot of time for us to be able to spend more time with each other. But now things are kind of moving a little bit back to the normal pace of life. And so I think it's something we could maintain in term. I think it's just a matter of time before we say, let's do this every week, every month. Just because the challenge of, hey, one, schedule, and then two, again, want to tell the right story, not just get together to tell a story. Find the right story, and not just because I don't want to become the podcast that just they just brought somebody in to talk about whatever they wanted to talk about today. Want it to be real and to be the right person. So I think those are the two biggest challenges. Is it sustainable? Yes, absolutely. We can definitely do this. For me, we live in rural Arkansas, man. So internet's a challenge for me where I live.
Devin's a trooper. He drives to a local school to like use their internet, and then like that way, like he's got fast internet and everything. Like he's running the 1s and 2s in the background, like in his car every single episode.
Like I am right now.
Yeah. No, I think, but like, and going to like quality of content, I think we started the campfire chats to talk about like something very specific, and so in this case, like coronavirus and the impact to education with Tiffany, and churches with Clayton, and what was the last one that we had? Music with Grayson, last week. So it's like there's been a lot of opportunity to like create a series around that and to create quality content that I think has really been helpful. What I'm excited about is, like, let's say in 50 years another pandemic comes around, seeing this 50 years from now and understanding how like things progressed for each of those things over time and the impact that it had. So I think documenting the impact to these industries has been something that's been really fun for us to like document that content. Danielle, so you came in at the beginning of May and started helping with our social media and creating graphics and just kind of like brain trust of, hey, here's some ideas of what we could do for episodes, things like that. So I guess like feel free to talk about how you got roped into this. And then also feel free to talk about like what are the challenges that you've kind of seen us walk through in the last month, and if you think it's sustainable.
So I guess you had posted on Facebook if anyone was interested in doing graphics and social media, and I absolutely love doing graphics, and like most people, I'm always on social media, so I was like, hey, I can do that. And I know you guys, and we all go to church together, and we have kids around the same age and stuff, and I just absolutely love y'all's wives. So I was like, hey, these will be good people to work with. And the major challenges was just coming in and, not really knowing, like, hey, so what's your game plan? What's your motto? What's your style? Like really trying to, not put my spin on anything, but really know who y'all are and what y'all are about. So I think getting all that, and then just, kind of working through the creativity part of it. And, it should be sustainable. I mean, if we can, like Devin says, we don't just want anybody to come on, we want it to be relevant and relatable and, so that it'll grab people's attention. But, I think as long as we can find the guest that,
the right story. Yeah. I think so. One of the funniest stories was when Danielle came in and we were talking, and she was like, so who did y'all's logo? And I was like, oh, I made that on a generator thing. She's like, yeah, this is crap. She didn't actually come out and be that direct. She wasn't that comfortable yet. She is getting more comfortable now, but it was trash. And I was just like, I basically was like, we're going to run with this until somebody else comes along. It's like, no, this is what you're going to use. And so I think in terms of you coming in and putting your own spin on it, I feel like you came in pretty quickly and did that just out of necessity because what we had was lacking.
It wasn't terrible-ish.
It was pretty bad. But we knew we liked the flame. Everybody likes the flame now. I get compliments quite a bit whenever I talk about the podcast of people being like, yo, I like y'all's logo.
I just want to say something about the logo. I was like, I want to have some shirts made and all that. So I had a black shirt and had the teal logo put on it. And I was like, I'm kind of proud about that. I'm like, all right. My mother-in-law walks in. She's like, so did you join the Girl Scouts? Nope. No, I didn't. Thanks.
So now we were branded like the Girl Scouts is basically what that ended up being.
Without selling cookies.
So very glad
without the cookies.
No cookies. So very glad we have a new logo. So thank you.
No problem. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
so thinking about, like, I really liked, one of the big learnings was how to navigate social media. And it's such a daily effort to stay on top of social media. And I think people, especially businesses, especially churches, especially, like, I think everyone underestimates the value of sitting in your comments, talking back with people, like, go and actually engaging, like proactively engaging with your audience. And so we kind of came at a crossroads towards the beginning of May where I was like, okay, what are some ways we could kind of culture hack things? Like, how can we, because at a certain point, the way YouTube and Facebook works is at a certain point of followers or subscribers or whatever it is, you can start monetizing your videos so that an ad plays. And like, I never want to monetize as in like buy our merch. Like, I don't necessarily believe that this is the right type of medium. Like, the podcast is the right type of medium for that. So anyway, there was an opportunity for us to buy followers and subscribers and to like get that number up quickly so that we could start monetizing, and we didn't use it. And the reason, I just kind of like documenting why, is because what I found out was that buying subscribers or followers or whatever else actually negatively impacts things. And if you think about it, it goes against being authentic and transparent with the audience that you have. Because instead of now having 10,000 followers on Instagram that are just fake, like, people, really, we now have 83. Like, I think we've almost doubled. Our following since Danielle started really engaging on Instagram and Facebook and everything. And I think that like, that is kind of like a pillar of like being authentic. We always want to be authentic in our stories that we're telling through our guests and things like that. And I just wonder if y'all like agree with that. Like, oh yeah, that's actually is like, it, had we gone that route, it would have been inauthentic. Or if you're like, yeah, I don't think it really mattered.
No, I agree. I think buying followers is not necessarily the best way to go.
Yeah.
So, I mean, excuse me, I really think being authentic and being real with people in general is just going to be the way we want to run this thing. And, you know, monetizing off of just by getting people, I just don't see the value in it when what we're trying to do is tell authentic stories and be real with people.
Right.
So I don't want us to lose that.
Yep.
Well, and two, when you buy followers, you know, you can scroll through comments and you can see, okay, they have 10,000 followers and 3 people like this post, you know? And so then people are starting to be like, okay, what's going on there? And then two, I mean, you're not going to gain anything. I mean, you're not going to have more people listen, you know, there's not that much growth that's going to happen for, real people and real types. So,
well, I think it actually skews the data that you really want, because the data you really want is, what is my audience liking about my content or my business, like, or my products or whatever it is. Like, what is my audience actually liking, so that I can do more of that. If you have 10,000 random accounts that aren't really invested in your story and your podcast business, whatever it is, then you're getting false data on what it is that really hits with them. And so, like, one of the things that we found, that Danielle, you had created a mental health awareness post, and it like double performed than any other post. And it's like, wow. So like, our audience really cares about mental health and like wellness. And so we want to create more content around that to like help promote that side of things. And so we're actually starting to think like, okay, how can we bring people in? And we've got a guest that's coming in to talk about mental health within churches, things like that, and pastors. Like, I'm super excited about that. Yeah, I think it just gives you a false data points on what it is that people in your audience actually care about. So all that to say, don't buy followers. If you're out there, if you're listening, don't buy followers.
No.
Yep.
I mean, invest that money in, I mean, you could do even like an Instagram ad or like a Facebook ad, like, because you can pick like, okay, what ages, demographics and stuff. So, I mean, don't, gain them that way if you're going to want to throw money at
that's that. Actually one thing I'm really interested to kind of like get into ourselves is instead like using that money to say, okay, what's an ad we could run to get more people that look like our audience? Mm-hmm. And that's not something that we've done a lot with. I think we'll start doing that over the next couple of months and seeing kind of what it does. I'm interested in the next reflection to kind of be like, here's what we learned in that, because I think that's the way to really grow the right audience. But so few people, like a lot of people are so interested in getting a quick return or that shorthand fix that makes you quote unquote successful. I think no one is really looking to play the longer game of actually building a community and building an audience. And I want us to really be authentic in doing that. And so it's going to be a longer play. Like we're a year and a month now down this road. And like, I think it's a drop in the bucket because I'm expecting to do this for the next 50 years. Like maybe there will be times where there's 6 months in between an episode, maybe not. And maybe some months have one episode and some have 4 or 5. But I think, again, we have a good heading, a good North Star of we want to build generational wisdom that people in the future can really use to as a jumping off point and to not make the same mistakes that our guests or ourselves did. I think that's weighing a lot on my mind right now.
Well, and two, when you buy followers and you have so many followers, your kind of expectation goes up of what you have to produce, how much content you have to get out. But if you build it slowly, and like I said, build your community, people get to know you and they get to know, it's not just these numbers that are thrown out there.
Yep. So. Yeah, I think too many people are worried about the numbers a lot of times instead of just creating. And it's funny, like talking about the Joe Rogan podcast, if you go back and you look at Joe Rogan's stuff at the beginning, like Joe Rogan didn't really start popping until like a few years ago, like 3 or 4 years ago. He's been doing this for like a decade, like I'm pretty sure 10 years. And so like it took 5 to 6 years for him to really start getting on the radar of folks. And now like he signed $100 million deal with Spotify to be exclusively on Spotify. You know what I mean? Like, so I think that is just a testament of building the community and building the right community and the right audience of people that care about your story and your content is definitely the right way to go. Mm-hmm. Cool. So in terms of what is next, I actually think we're only going to do one episode next month, but it's going to be a doozy of an episode.
Okay.
And so I can't really like publicly, y'all already know, but I can't really publicly say who it is, but just be checking. But just be checking our stuff. We got to figure out a date and everything else, but I'm super excited to talk about just those things in general that this guest is going to bring to the table. But I think probably in the summer, like we may just do one a month in the summer, and there, you know what, in July we may not do any, but we're going to keep putting out content. I just for like documentation purposes, we're also like, I wanted to start a media company, a digital media agency to help other people basically do the same thing that we're doing here, is creating a podcast, creating a community, creating content for them, for their business, for their brand, whether it's like an artist like Grayson Rogers maybe, or it's a small business that's like struggling right now because nobody's going to brick and mortars, but they don't know about Facebook and Instagram shops, which is the new feature that just got released last week that could really help their business thrive during this time. And so I'm really excited, and I really like just putting it out there. We're looking to help a small business, if like a brick and mortar that's been struggling and needs help moving to an online presence and social media presence, DM us, let us know. We kind of want to jump in with somebody and do some stuff for them. But anyway, that's what's coming up. That's what's happening in the background. There's going to be a lot of exciting news that comes about, and you'll probably see a different podcast come up that like we're much busier on this summer, which is why we're not doing as many episodes on this podcast. But we're going to keep doing it because I like at the end of the day, I think that like we're building something really important here. And we seem to be having an audience that enjoys watching it. So I really appreciate everybody watching.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything else before we head out?
No.
Cool.
Man. I'm looking forward to see what we come up with, man.
Sounds good. Thank y'all so much for all the work you put towards it. I'm excited about the next year as well.
All right. Sounds good.
Cool. Devin on the 1s and 2s. Hit it, man.
See ya.
Later.